This is Gemara in Nazir, Daf Ches. First, just a little bit of an announcement that I know that yesterday's Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, was a bit difficult. And I don't believe I really did 100% justice in explaining each and every line of the Daf. So, B'siyata D'Shmaya, as you're about to see in a moment, today's Daf is a bit of a Chazara. As yesterday's Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, the cases came from Daf Ches. So I hope, b'siyata d'shmaya, by the end of today, we'll have a little bit more clarity, although it is a very, very difficult sugya, but we will try to do our best. So says the Gemara on the top of Chesam and Aleph, Hareini Nazir Kisar Roishi, and right away you see the connection to yesterday's daf, as this was the case that we were discussing. Someone says, I am a Nazir like the hair on my head, Uka afar haaretz, like the dirt on the ground, Uka chol hayam, like the sand in the sea. 3 terms of Nazirus of items, which even though they're perhaps noticeable what they are, but they're infinite. There's no way to count the hair on the head, etc., etc. So what is the halacha? Harei zeh Nazir Olam. The person has the status of a Nazir Olam. He's a Nazir forever. Umegaleach achas l'shleishim. And because he's a Nazir forever, no end sight in sight, so he can take a haircut once every 30 days. Now let's just realize, there's a difference between Nazir Olam and Nazir Lit Olam. Nazir Olam means he is a Nazir forever. Nazir, again, I don't want to get stuck on the English words, but he's a Nazir that keeps it going and going and going and going, and therefore, he gets a haircut every 30 days. Now there's something else that's Nazir Lit Olam, which means it's a very, very long time, and in that case, you cannot get a haircut every 30 days because you're middle of a Nazirus. Rebbe argues, and Rebbe Omer cannot get a haircut once every 30 days. In this case of one saying, I'm a Nazir, like the hairs on my head, like the sand in the sea, etc. And Rebbe says, so what is the case that you could get a haircut once every 30 days? If someone says, now it sounds very similar. What's the difference? Harei alai Naziros versus Hareini Nazir. Hareini Nazir is singular. Harei alai Naziros is in the plural. Harei alai Naziros is in the plural. So says Rebbe, if he said the plural hairs on my head, sand in the sea, dirt on the ground, then he indeed, yes, could get a haircut every 30 days. And yesterday we discussed 2 reasons why this is a case of a Nazir Olam. That was on Daf Zayin Amud Aleph. The first reason, said the Gemara, was because, and this will be our quick review and give a little more of a explanation, because it was kol milsad ismei kitzutza, and this was a matter that was less bei kitzutza. There's no set determinant amount to hairs on your head, whereas Rabbah said a little bit of an opposite svara, which is why it's a little bit difficult. He said hairs are different, hold muvdalais zu vizu, that hairs are separate one from another, but they're separate one from another, but you can't actually count them. Those are, thank you very much, those are the 2 reasons why Nazir Kisa'ah Roishi is going to create a Nazir Olam. And now we continue in the Mishnah. Now this part of the Mishnah was not discussed yesterday, and this will be discussed in the Gemara today. Hareini Nazir Malei Habayis. Someone says, I'm a Nazir with a full house. What does that mean? Ay Malei Akupa, with a full box. So Baitkin, I said, we check and we ask him, what do you mean? If he says, Achaz Kedela Nazarti, I mean, I want to have one large Nazirus like this house, like this box. What does he mean? Nazir la midyayim. Like we saw yesterday, that there's a concept that one could say, whether he says, not yesterday, in Daf Vav, whether he says Achaz Nazir Gedela, Achaz Nazir Ketano, it's a Stam Nazir of 30 days. But if he says, no, that's not what I meant. V'imamar, if he explains Stam Nazarti, I meant a Stam Nazir like this house, like this box, then what does he mean? Ryan, we look as Akupa, we view the box Ki'ilu hi malei chardol, as if the box is filled with mustard seed, very small items, and therefore the Nazir Nazir kol yamav. He's going to be a Nazir like the amount of mustard seeds that there are, which is for his entire life, which means the same thing as a Nazir Olam, like the hairs on his head. Just like you can't count the hairs on the head, can't count the mustard seed in the box, and therefore the halacha is he's a Nazir Olam, he can be megaleach every 30 days. Continues the Mishnah with another case that we saw yesterday. So case A we saw yesterday, case B we're going to explain today, and case C we saw yesterday as well. Hareini Nazir mikan an makoim ploini. Someone says I'm a Nazir from here until a certain place. So then we evaluate kamu yama mikan an makoim ploini. How far of a distance is it to that place? If bachas mi lamid yom is less than 30 days, Nazir lamid yom, then he's going to be a Nazir for 30 days. Vim lavin, if not, Nazir kimini nayamim. He's a Nazir for the amount of days that he traveled. And this was really the contrast to the case A of Sa'araishi. Sa'araishi was something the less beiki tzutza. There's no end sight. It's no discernible, no discriminant amount. Whereas the days that I travel does have a discernible amount. So the halacha is less than 30. It's 30. More than 30, the amount of days traveled, 40, 50, 60, etc. Continues the Mishnah, he says, I'm a Nazir like the days of the sun. He has the number of Naziris like the days of the sun. And if we just quickly glance over here at the Taisus explains, Ha-chama, or you might say Shana Taisa says, which is what? 365 months he is a Nazir acher Nazir, one Nazir after the next, and therefore he could be Megaleach every 30 days and bring a carbon, but he's going to be a Nazir for 365 consecutive months, about 20 something years. And it's not one long Nazirus, but rather it is the Nazirus that keeps on repeating itself for 365 months. And the Mishnah concludes with the sheet of Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says Rav Yehuda, there was a story, and when he finished the 365 consecutive Nazirus, 365 months, 365 30 days Nazirus, the person was nifter. So case A and C, we already spoke about. Case B, he was going to talk about today. And then finally the Mishnah concludes with this din of Nazirus for 365 terms of Nazirus. So says the Gemara, let's comment, let's discuss case B of the Mishnah, like we spoke about if someone is Nazir, like a box, like a house. And we ask him if he meant one large Nazirus, it's 30 days. If he meant stam, then we view the box as if it's filled with mustard, and he's going to be a Nazir for a very, very long amount of time, like the hairs on his head. Says the Gemara, we view the box if it's filled with mustard seed. The Nazir kol yamav, and he's a Nazir all of his days. Ask the Gemara, why are you viewing the box as if it's filled with mustard? Why are you viewing the box as if it's filled with something teeny, the mustard seed? And therefore, what is the result? It's a lot of Naziros, because you can fill up a box with thousands, millions of seeds. Maybe we should view the box as if it's filled with gourd and cucumber, large items, and it's not so many. And then he's going to have a takana, and he's going to have a remedy. What's the remedy? As many gourds and cucumbers, you can fill up the box, 20, 30, etc. So what is the reason that we're assuming in the Mishnah that we're using the barometer, the litmus test is mustard seed? So says the Gemara, Amar Chizkiah, you know why? Says Rav Chizkiah, the Mishnah is a debatable point. Not everyone agrees with this din of the Mishnah. But who does? The Shimon, the Mishnah that says we view it as if it's filled with mustard, is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, the Amar. Says Rav Shimon, a person will involve himself in something in which the outcome, if it's a suffix, if it's an uncertainty, is more stringent than if it is a vadai. Titanya, what does that mean? The following brisa. Hareni Nazir Amanashi Bikri Zemeakor. Someone makes a conditional Nazirus I'm a Nazir if this pile is 100 core inside of it. He says, okay, let's go count. Are there actually 100 core and the Kri, and he goes to count, and guess what? There's no Kri. There's no bile. It's stolen or it's lost. What do we say now? Says the Gemara of Shimon, 8 lines from the bottom. Oyser. Says Rav Shimon, he is forbidden. He is considered a Nazir. Why? We're not sure. Says Rav Shimon, so we have to be stringent. But we see that the way that Rav Shimon is learning that within the case you enter yourself into a matziv, a situation of suffix, even though the result is going to be very stringent. That's going to be the same thing as it did in our Mishnah. That when he says, I'm a Nazir like a box, you put yourself into a stringent, a suffix, an uncertain situation, even though the outcome will be very stringent, that will view it as if it's filled with mustard. Rav Yehuda disagrees. Rav Yehuda matir. In this case, he's not a Nazir. Why? Suffix Nazirois lahakel. So says Rav Chizkiah, the Mishnah goes with Rav Shimon. Why? Because Rav Shimon says you enter yourself into a suffix. We view the box as filled with mustard, even though it's more chamer than avadai. Not like the opinion of Rav Yehuda, who says when we're not sure, we're going to be mekel. We're not sure if that pile at 100 kor, you're not a Nazir. We're not sure in our Mishnah whether the box filled mustard or not, we're going to be mekel. So that's how Chizkiah learns the din in the Mishnah is going to be like Rav Shimon. Says the Gemara, not everyone agrees with this assessment of Chizkiah. Rav Yochanan Amar, 6 lines to the bottom, Afilu Tema Rav Yehuda. Says Rav Yochanan, Chizkiah, you got it wrong. The Mishnah is not only Rav Shimon. We could even say the Mishnah is Rav Yehuda, who says we don't get involved in a suffix. So why in our Mishnah do we view that there's mustard seed? Hasam loy nachis leil niziros. In that case, of the core of the pile, we're not sure if he's a Nazir. Why? He said a condition. If there's mea core, I'll be a Nazir. So in such a scenario, says Rabbi Yehuda, it's a suffix. We're not sure. You're not a Nazir. But halcha in our Mishnah, whatever way you cut it, he's going to be a Nazir. Question is how long? Because he says he's a Nazir like this box, like the house. The question is how many things can we fit into the box of the house? Halcha in our Mishnah, nachzlan in Naziros. Therefore, in our Mishnah, he's for sure going to be a Naziris. With what can we remove him from being a Nazir? So explains Rav Yochanan Chizkiah. You don't have to learn our Mishnahs like Rav Shimon. You can even learn the Mishnahs like Rav Yehuda. Comments the Gemara, 3 lines from the bottom. Amai. Why are you saying Amai Loi, says the Gemara? Why are you saying that in our Mishnah he's for sure a Nazir? And since he's for sure a Nazir, we need to take on a very stringent Nazirus. Says Gemara, 1 second. You're right. There's a certain Nazirus and a Vadai in the Mishnah. But how long? Which was our original question. Why don't we say, maybe view the box as if it's filled up with kishun and diluim, cucumbers and gourds. And then, v'tavalei tekanta, lava tekana. Hosakadaitach Nazirus the kibul alei. It's true. He did accept upon himself Nazirus, but for how long? Let's say that we fill up the box with kishum and diluim, and then it will have a definite amount of time that he's going to be a Nazir. He'll go and he'll be a Nazir, and then after the first term of Nazirus, before he continues, we'll say, we don't know if it's going to continue, and then we don't have to be so stringent in the Mishnah. So ask the Gemara, why are we jumping so quick to conclusions, even in the teretz of Rav Yochanan? And the Gemara answers, I'll tell you why. As we turn over to Chesem and Beis, you know why? To Rav Yehuda Savar, Rav Yehuda holds Kirabi. Rav Yehuda holds like Rabbi, which we've learned already. The Tanan Rabbi Omer. This was the Mishnah that we started off with today. Said Rabbi in our Mishnah that this is not a case that you're megaleach once every 30 days. Rather, what is the case? Said Rabbi that you're megaleach once every 30 days. And what is that case? If someone says, I am a Nazir, he says it in the plural. So Rav Yehuda is going to hold just like Rabbi, and that's how we can explain our Mishnah. You're saying that maybe Rav Yehuda will allow you to get out of your suffix. The answer is no, because you accepted upon yourself a plural of Nazirus. That is why Rav Yehuda could fix with fit with Rebbe, and then even be the Tan of our Mishnah that when it says that he accepted upon himself Nazirus like a box, like a house, we're going to view it with as if it's going to have mustard seed inside of it. Asks the Gemara, 1 second. So now this is almost a tangential point because we understand our Mishnah. But now says the Gemara, 1 second. Rav Yochanan, you just came along and you just explained that Rav Yehuda could be the opinion of the Mishnah. And how is Rav Yehuda the opinion of the Mishnah? He's going with the sheet of Rabbi. Ask the Gemara, Rav Yehuda misavar Rabbi, is that true? Now we learned in a Mishnah 5 lines from the top of Chesam and Beis. We learned in a Mishnah, Reni Nazir Gimini Maizacham, our Mishnah v'chulu. And Amar Rav Yehuda explained on our Mishnah. There was a story. And when he finished the 365 terms of Nazirus, 365 months, he was nifter. So says the Gemara, I amrit bishlama aleph aleph beis. If you're going to tell me, except upon himself 365 terms of Naziros, so it makes sense. He was a Nazir for 20 years, and now we can understand that which Rav Yehuda and the Mishnah said that when he finished it, he was nifter. But if you're going to say like Rebbe, that in this case, what did he accept upon himself? He didn't accept upon himself 365 separate Nazir, he accepted upon himself one. Is there ever an end sight? There's never an end sight. There's never a conclusion. Because although when the Mishnah says, when he finished the Nazirus, maybe it means at the end of 365 days, then it wouldn't work. When the Mishnah says that he's a Nazir for 365 times of Nazirus. So says the Gemara that if Rav Yehuda held like Rebbe, then it would not work with the din in the Mishnah, because he would not be one to say that when the 65 terms of Nazirus, the guy died in his Nazirus. Void, and another kasha says the Gemara, Misavala Karebi, does Rav Yehuda really hold like Rebbe? Vatani, we learned in a brayser, Rav Yehuda Aimer Nazir, Minyan Hayalkute Kayitz. Says Rav Yehuda, if someone says I'm a Nazir according to the number of piles of kayitz of fig crop, or Uminyan Shibali Shmita, or the number of Shmita paths, Maina Naziras Kiminin Al Kuti Kayitz. How many Naziras did he accept? The amount of piles of figs, a Kiminin Shibali Shmita. Fig, and the amount of paths of Shmita. So says the Gemara, we see that Rav Yehuda doesn't go with Rebbe, because we see that Rav Yehuda is accepting upon himself individual terms of Naziros. What did Rebbe say in the Mishnah? Rebbe said, if you say Areini Mikabel, what was the wording? Rebbe said, if you said Areini Nazir, you said in the singular, that it's not separate terms of Naziros, unless it says Arei Olai Naziros in the plural. But we see over here, when someone says it in the singular, that he's accepting Hareini Nazir of the number of paths, of the number of figs, he does accept upon himself separate ones. So clearly Rav Yehuda is not like Rebbe. Answers the Gemara, the teretz, and I'm sure many people are assuming, Minyan Shiny. The fact that he said Kiminyan al Yalkuti Kayitz, Kiminyan Shibai Shmita. The fact that he threw that word in Kiminyan, that's how the difference arises. Says the Gemara, we're about 20 lines down. The first line is Shiny. Umi Shiny Leila Rebbe Minyan. Is this true? Does Rebbe actually differentiate if he said minyan? Meaning, because we're trying to answer that Rav Yehuda does go with Rebbe. In this brayso that we quoted, it says, because there it says minyan al kutei kayitz. It says the Gemara, Rebbe himself doesn't hold to such a differentiation. V'atani is learned in the brayso. Hareini Nazir keminyan imaysacham. If someone says I'm a Nazir like the days of the sun, Mainen Nazira is keminyan imaysacham. Kimei alvana like days of the moon, Manin keminyan alvana. Tanikama. Rabbi Oimer, Achi Oimer, Nizirus Alai, Kiminyan, Yemois Achan, Kiminyan, Yemois Alvana. So says the Gemara, how can you tell me that Rabbi Yehuda learns within Rabbi that there's a difference when he says Kiminyan? We see clearly in the Brisa, not that way, that even though Rabbi says you said Kiminyan, it's still not a separate Naziros. Answers the Gemara, the classical teretz. Or just have a look, that it's true. So, he also for like Rebbe in one, then Nazir is Kabbalah, except upon himself Nazirois. So he partially holds like Rebbe, and he partially doesn't, and that's how we could indeed answer the din in our Mishnah. It says Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yehuda could be the Tana of the Mishnah, going with the Shita of Rebbe. Now we have a little bit of a lighter end to today's daf, which is Baruch Hashem, the end of the first parak in Nazir. Tanu Rabbanan, says the Gemara, quoting the Bryce, about 15 lines to the end of this parak, Chesam and Beis. First on the line is Verebi at the two dots. Hareini Nazir kol yimei chayai. Someone says, I'm a Nazir all days of my life. Hareini Nazir Olam. He is a Nazir forever. Harei Zen Nazir Olam. Excuse me. If he either says, I'm a Nazir kol yimei chayai, or he says, Hareini Nazir Olam, then Harei Zen Nazir Olam. Afilu meyashana, afilu elef shanim. But if he says even 100 years or 1,000 years, but he gave a number, ein ze nazir olam ela nazir le'olam, then that's not a nazir forever, but rather a nazir, again, the way the art school says it, nazir olam is permanent, nazir le'olam is forever. And again, the difference being whether you're able to be megaleach every 30 days. Continues the Gemara, Taner Rabbanan. Hareini Nazir ve'achas. Someone says, I'm a Nazir and one. Minus shtayim, he's 2 Nazirs. Va'oid. If he says, I'm a Nazir, va'oid, then he's minus shalosh 3 Nazirs. V'shov, he says, and again, minus arba, he's 4 times Nazirs. Says Bar Shita, of course, each time he's adding on another. Answers the Gemara, Ma'ud, the team of V'shov. Then when he says V'shov, ki kulu v'havaleshis, then maybe when he says and Vishov, he means to go back on everything. And it's another 3, so to be 6 in total. Kamash Malan Deloy. Tana Rabban, another brisa. Hareini Nazir. Someone says, I'm a Nazir, and he said one of the words we said before. Subchas Aimer, the following. Hein, if he said the word Hein, Achaz, it's 1 Nazir's. Digon, if he says the word Digon, Shtaim, it's 2 Nazir's. Tarigon is Shalosh, Tatarigon is Araba, Pentagon is Chamesh, and of course, we know these words, a tetragon and a pentagon, these 4 and 5 sides. As the Gemara here teaches us, these words will mean 4 or 5 Naziros. Tani Rabbanan, 4 lines to the end of the parak, and with this we conclude by his Agel Digan Trigan Pentagon. Einai Metame Benegayim. A round house, a 2-cornered, 3-cornered, 4-cornered, 5-cornered house. I shouldn't say that. 2, 3, 5, it skipped 4. There is no din of Tomas Negayim. Tatrigon, a 4-cornered house, mitame bin agayim. My taima. What is the reason for this din? Lamatu oimer kir. In one pasuk it says kir kirois. Lamalu oimer kir kirois. Harei kan arba. From the fact that it tells you the word kir, wall, 4 different times, says the Gemara, shows us that what? Shows us that we have 4 walls in order to have Tomas Negoyim. Hadron Allah Kol Kinuya, a bit of a difficult parak. We should do a chazara. Hopefully we'll catch up on the reviews, and that's a nice way of doing chazara as well. Psiyata Dishmaya, we'll move headstrong into Daf Test tomorrow.